of Coda Conversation. Prescott Lawani, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm glad to be here.
Oh man, definitely glad to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing?
I made it on Christmas Eve of 2020, so it's been going on for a little bit over 2 years and a couple of months. And I just finished my first game called Luxafi right here, and I released it on the 9th of February, so it hasn't been out that long. It's my first game. I also have a bachelor's degree in art and technology that I got in 2008, and I'm currently self-teaching myself programming in the C++ language and Unreal Engine 5.
Nice. What made you want to get into programming in the first place?
Well, actually, right now I'm technically just a technical designer, but I am very interested in programming. I'm pretty good at math, and I've been off and on again on programming. When I went to school in college, I actually didn't do that well in programming, and it kind of became like, in a way, it was kind of like a pride thing. I wanted to get at programming because I knew that I was interested, and I knew I could understand it over time. It's just that I never really took the chance when I was younger. So I'm really interested in it as I got older. And yeah, I love programming. I love the possibilities of programming, and I wanted to be able to make my second game in mostly code.
So yeah, making games is a pretty ambitious thing. What made you want to make a game as your first major project?
Well, yeah. So when I was younger, me and my brother, like, I mean, really young, this was like grade school stuff. We would always make our own little mock games with toys that we had, like these little McDonald's Happy Meals toys. And it's kind of been like that for me most of my life. I've always had like, it's always been deep within me to want to make video games because we started off playing games like the beat 'em ups like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade, X-Men arcade, and the Simpsons arcade. And also I had an NES at the time and played a lot of Mario and Zelda games. So games have always been in my life. And also when I was in the fifth grade, I started drawing my own comic book that eventually I created my own video game like system to it, where I came up with a battle system using cards and dice to make the drawings more interesting. So it's always been in my mind and in my heart to make games.
That definitely makes sense, man. Can you tell us a little bit about your the current game you just released?
Oh yeah, so it's called Lux the Thief. You play a black protagonist character, which there aren't that many of, and there aren't that many black game developers either, which is stressful. And you play in a lo-fi hip-hop Zelda-like world. It's been called a very charming game. It's been called smooth. It's been called cool, and it has a fast-paced action but it's fast-paced action, but it's also simple to pick up. So I tried to make it in a way that's easily accessible to any kind of gamer to enjoy. And it's just a fun like little Zelda like it's kind of reminiscent of the 3D Zelda games like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask or Wind Waker for that matter.
Can you go a little bit deeper into some of the game mechanics?
Yeah, so it's an action adventure stealth game. So kind of like I said before, the 3D Zelda games, you have a 3D world. It's in third person view. You have action. He uses two daggers on both his right and left hand. He uses double daggers to fight enemies. You can sneak around and sneak attack enemies. You collect these coins called luckies, and you use them as your ranged weapons. You can throw the luckies kind of like a throwing star, and you can also use the luckies to upgrade yourself, like upgrade your attack and defense. So it has a little bit of RPG elements in there. And there's I think three bosses and a few enemy types. Plus I was told it was really ambitious for a very first game. So there's a lot of features in there, and It's not too long either. Like it takes people around the average of 2.5 hours to beat.
So, yeah, how long did it take you to make a game? How long did that take?
Oh yeah. So it took me technically it took me 2 years. I started it in January 2021. So a month after I created my company. And excuse me. So I started in January 2021 and I was prototyping a lot. It used to be a two-player split screen game, actually, but then along the lines, I had to change that idea around. And by I would say September of 2021 was when I finally came up with exactly what I wanted it to be. So so I started in January, but I came up with the official like design that I wanted in September. So I always tell people it took me 2 years, but it's more like 1 year and a few months.
Okay, so you developed this game completely by yourself.
Yes, I actually for the longest time in the development process, I was doing it all on my own. But then eventually, I did delegate some things like some of the art, and I had help with the programming as well by a few people. Like shout out to Ryan Laley and Moxie for helping me with the programming. And I had people that made the art because I'm not the best artist, and I was doing the art at first. I was doing everything on my own for most of that whole time in development, but it wasn't until maybe I would say maybe November of 2021. No, November of 2022 that I started delegating out help from other people to make it look more professional. But other than that, it's still solo developed. I did all the design, all the level design, all the story, all the mechanics and stuff like that.
So did you ever get at a point where, since you're working by yourself, you were just completely stuck? And how did you get the help to overcome that issue?
Mm. Yeah, so yeah, there were a couple of times where I did get stuck. Whenever I had an issue, I would just contact one of the people I mentioned before to try to help me out with the programming and the mechanics, or I would just use either a YouTube channel that had like a general idea of what I was going for. Also, I did have a few courses that I was taking online to try to come up with some of the basic stuff of the game.
So for your second game, are you going to use the same engine you're using now? Is that what are you using now? Unity or
Yes. So
okay?
this first game, I'm using Unreal Engine. The second game, I do have a plan where I'm trying to team up with a few guys that are working on something. They're using Unity, I might switch engines then. But on the third game, I'll go back to Unreal Engine. Also, if the second plan doesn't work out for some reason, I would just make the second game be Unreal Engine. I'm really comfortable with Unreal Engine because that's what I went to school for. Uh, they taught me Unreal Engine and C++ mostly at that time. So I'm really comfortable with Unreal Engine. I know most game developers are more comfortable with Unity, but I'm weird like that. I'm just more comfortable with Unreal Engine.
How much math did you have to know to start making your own game?
Not much actually. I love math and I would love to learn more of it, but I only needed to know up to about Algebra 2 to make a video game.
Okay, so like really knowing math, that's more for game development, game engine development, correct? Or
I would say so. Yeah, when you're making a game, you just need to know like linear algebra and things like that. Other like programming disciplines like data science or like you said, game engine programming require more math. And I do plan on like I'm using this website called Khan Academy that teaches you math, and I'm trying to get beyond just algebra 2 so I can one day use my skills to do things like engine programming and stuff like that.
Can you tell us a little bit about like what are some of the math concepts you're using in the game, like physics for running and jumping, or
Hmm. Well, there's a little bit of physics, like collisions and physics and things like that. But honestly, most of what I did for this game, like I said, in the second game, I'm going to be using more programming. But this first game, I'm using blueprints in Unreal Engine. So it's mostly visual scripting.
so how was the process of like actually releasing it? So the game is done. What do you do next?
Oh, so actually, before the game was done, I ended up buying a like a little space, a little game ID on Steam on the Steam website. So I went to the Steam website and I bought that. It cost about $100 to hold it in place, put some screenshots on it, and tried to do the marketing ahead of time. Uh, it was actually fairly easy. I followed along with there was this indie game developer who teaches indie games called Thomas Brush. He teaches Unity game development, and on his course, which was a master course, I learned how to put my game on Steam.
Oh wow. So how's the feedback been so far? You said people think it's charming, and what are some of the other comments you've gotten?
Yeah, so it's mostly good comments. I say it hasn't made that much of a splash just yet. It's only been out for a couple of weeks. Has a handful of sales, and it has, like I said, it has 5 out of 6 positive reviews. People have been saying like a lot of people have said it's charming and smooth and cool and fast-paced action, and like the character Locks is very cool and like fun to listen to, and you like fall in love with them after a couple of minutes. Uh, there are some negative reviews though, which I don't mind because it is my first game, so I was expecting to have some flaws in it. And one of the main gripes with the game, whether it was positive or negative, is that it needs more polish,
Did they
which
give
I'm
you
definitely
like
gonna apply.
did they give you like any specifics on what areas you need to kind of polish, or was that just like a general statement?
Mm, I think it was a general statement, but I have seen people playing the game on YouTube and would say, "Oh, the game's too bright," or
Hmm.
something like that. Or at first, there were some extra characters that I put in the game that were I was told don't really fit the design of the game. So like they don't really. It's like, oh, we have this over here, but these guys don't fit in, so I just had to remove them.
All
And there
right.
were also like some sound issues as well.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Getting feedback and accommodating the user base. How do you really go about that? You just kind of like send out the game to some people for free and ask them to what do they think, or how do you really get
Oh yeah,
feedback?
right. Excuse me, right. So in January of this year, January 2023, I spent the month QA testing. So I sent out basically like a blast message to people on Discord, on the Discord channels I was in, and had them come to my Discord channel. And I gave them the role of QA tester, where I gave them a copy of my game to just run through and give me feedback, tell me what they think, and like if they found any problems or bugs to let me know. And as they found the problems and bugs, I started updating the game more and more. It was thanks to those guys in the QA team that the game is more or less bug free. Of course, there's no such thing as a bug free
Yeah.
game, but it definitely it improved by quite a bit by having them give me their input.
So, do you plan on like releasing like comics and merchandise around the game if it really blows up? Like, what is your strategy for that?
That's a good idea. I would love to do that actually. If it does do good, and even if it doesn't do good, if I can get more of these shirts, if I go to like game developer conferences and meetups and stuff like that, I would take these shirts as the first step. But like you said, making a comic book would be really cool. I can continue my old story from before or make a new story. Maybe like a plushie or something like that. That'd be really really cool. I would love to do that because I kind of want Locks of Thief and the games behind them to be kind of like my franchise. I don't
Mm.
want to just make a bunch of just a bunch of random games here and there. I want to continue the story.
So,
And
like for part two, like what kind of new concept do you want to introduce? I know it's pretty early, but
well, part two, I want to go back to the original idea of it being a two-player split screen, where you can play one player can play the thief, Lux the thief, and the other player can play this other character that's in the story named Muriel the Muse. She is a magic user, and she plays completely different from him. And I it already seems like a really complicated thing to do, but I'm like looking forward to the challenge of being able to have those two characters work properly in a large game that's gonna technically it'll work somewhat similar to this first game, but it would have a lot of improvements and changes that would make it its own original game, and they would mostly be connected by the story and the characters.
did you have like any game that really inspired you to make this game, or like any game developers you really look up to?
Yes. My two of my top five heroes are Shigeru Miyamoto, the guy that makes Mario and Zelda. Zelda is one of my biggest influences. This game is very similar to the Wind Waker in its style. It uses a cel-shaded style. But I also like games like Metal Gear Solid and Thief because I love stealth games. Hideo Kojima, the creator of Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding, is a developer I look up to as well. I really like his stories sometimes confuse me,
Yeah.
but the gameplay of his games are really good, even though sometimes they're somewhat limited. And I really like how he always just creates something weird and wild. But yeah, the games themselves, I would say, are Zelda, Metal Gear Solid, and the game Thief, the original Thieves.
Okay, so it seems like you started gaming all the way back since the NES days.
Oh yeah, yep, yeah. I was born in 1986, which is when the first Zelda came out, and I was playing a lot of old school NES games from there. I missed that. It's crazy. I missed out on the Super Nintendo
Mhm.
because I ended up getting a Sega Genesis instead. But then most of that time since then, I've had Nintendo systems like the Nintendo 64, GameCube, Wii, not the Wii U because I didn't even know it was a thing, and the Switch.
So, like, what era would you say is like the height of gaming for you?
Mm, that's a good question. I liked, I did like the Nintendo 64 era, but also liked the GameCube as well. And I'm having a lot of fun with my Switch. So
Hmm.
there's been a few of them really. Like even NES was fun, and I guess since I'm such a gamer, I would say all of them, which isn't a good answer, but maybe if I had to choose one, I would say the GameCube era because I really liked playing games like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess at the time. And it was also I think that was the one where me and my brother played a lot of Smash Brothers.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like, what games did you find like really revolutionary? Like, it really blew your mind and kind of like made you want to make a game.
Okay. So I would say Ocarina of Time, so
Mm.
Nintendo 64, Metal Gear Solid 1, and Metal Gear Solid 3, and this game called Dishonored.
Mm.
That when I played Dishonored, that really blew my mind. Obviously, those other games I mentioned before, how impactful they were on this game that I made. But Dishonored was like it's like a league of its own. You could play it any way, and I liked how the story would just change depending on what you did. And I played it. It's one of those rare games that I played more than once. I usually play a game once and I'm done with it, unless it's one of those games that really influenced me. But Dishonored 1, I played twice, and at first I played the stealth way. I didn't like. I tried my best not to kill any of my enemies, and the world was somewhat peaceful. And then I played it a second way where I would just take out my enemies any way I could, and like the world was so dark and like terrible, and it was really cool. Like I really liked that. It was very inspirational for future games. I like the fact that it changed. Like it was really cool how it just changed the way things were within it, which was really cool. So it kind of made me think of those choice games, which another game I would mention would be The Wolf Among Us, where it was a choice game. It wasn't an action game. It was narrative. It was basically a narrative game with some action in it, and it was the same way. Like depending on what narrative you chose, the game itself would change as well. And I really like games like that.
How do you plan on introducing like a choice mechanic in your game, in your future games?
Yeah, so I do plan on doing that in the second game. I'm kind of tight-lipped on what I want
Yeah.
to do with it, but I do want to find a way to have both the thief and muse interact as like they would have things that they do as a couple, but they would also have things they do separately, and like in combination of those things would affect the world and the gameplay.
What do you think about like multiple endings in games? Are you a fan or not too much?
I love multiple endings in games. I love replay value. I tried very hard. Well, it wasn't that hard, but I tried to be a Twitch streamer for a while. And I know that Twitch streamers love games that have replayability. So I like the idea of multiplayer games, and I like the idea of multiple endings, so people can come back and play a game more than just once. My first game only has one ending, and it's a one-player game, but at the same time, it's my first game. I was literally learning how to make games when I made it, and I want my second game to have way more variety. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Is game development something you can see yourself doing full time? And like, how do you balance like working your job with developing a game?
Yeah, if I could get the funding, then I would definitely be a full-time game developer. Uh, as for yeah, because this first game I didn't do Kickstarter or publishers or anything like that, so I had to fund it all on my own, which was very hard. As for working and doing game development at the same time, I have two, I would say two official jobs that I work right now on top of making my game, and on top of two like volunteer work jobs that I do, and but it's all part time. None of it's full time. So I do have free time to work on games and programming and design and art and stuff like that. But I would love the chance to if I couldn't get funding to be a full-time game developer, I would love to have a full-time job to fund the game. And even still, like the jobs I do, like one of my jobs is I'm a game teacher, so I teach games. So I'm making games and I'm teaching games. My other job is just a delivery driver job, so it doesn't require that much energy to do. So I always have enough backup energy when I get off of work to keep working on games and stuff like that.
Do you plan on like transitioning to like just a general coding job and then seeing if you can do game development later, or like is programming in general something you really want to do?
If I could, I would. Yeah, I would definitely do that. Like, because programming is good pay, it's good work, it's good. It's a good challenge. But I noticed because since I'm not the best programmer, I'm still basically trying to learn Like I know the basics, but I'm having a hard time advancing beyond that right now. And I whenever I look on websites like LinkedIn for jobs, even internships, like it would have over 200
Hmm.
applicants applying for the job. And I know like a lot of those people know programming better than me, so it would be hard for me to actually break into that just yet. I would have to do a lot of work to do the coding route, and I guess that's just what I'm going to have to do anyway.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely not easy breaking in, but you're somebody who stayed dedicated enough to release a game, so I feel like you
Yeah,
will be able to break in. It just requires like like persistence, facing a lot of rejections, being told
yeah,
no. Yeah,
right.
how do you get past the no's? Like I know you probably been rejected here and there. How do you like mentally like move past the no's?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't know how I do. I just like, oh, they said no, and I move on. I don't have like a strategy or anything like that.
Mm,
It never bothers me mentally. I don't let it bring me down or anything like that. Because I already know that that's just the way it is. Like it takes a while. It's a big numbers game, and I've had people tell me that before. So I automatically prepared myself for the nose, and I prayed for the best and expect the worst.
absolutely. Where can people find you at?
Oh, so I'm all over the place. Like I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Uh, Usually, if you look up things like Locks the Thief game or Locks the Thief or Padlocks Technologies or my name Prescott Lawani, you can find me. You can find me in a Google search, and it'll show you all kinds of things that I do. Or, like I said, you can search those names at the social media pages, and they'll send you right to me.
That's let me see. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I had, man. Did you have any closing thoughts for the audience?
Yeah. So if you are trying to be a game developer, whatever you do, don't give up. It's going to be hard. It's definitely going to be hard, and just keep pushing at it. Eventually, you'll make a breakthrough. Definitely release the game. Don't don't spend too much time working on projects that you just quit over and over. Like releasing a game is a great experience. I went to a party and people were like, "Oh yeah, I love your game," and like so, it's crazy how many people, especially indie game developers, don't finish games. So definitely do that. And if you're a game player, please get my game. I would really appreciate y'all getting my game and leaving a review. Uh, because I really would love to see what people think of the game. A lot of people seem to like it, and it's been fun. Like I really had fun the last 2 years on the game. I wish I'd done it sooner, but I'm glad I'm doing it now. And yeah, stay tuned to more games from me and Padlocks Technologies, and hopefully some sequels with Locks of Thief and Thief and the Mutes.
Yeah, thank you for stopping by. Everybody, be sure to check out Locks the Thief. Yeah, we definitely like to have you back, man. But yeah, we appreciate you for stopping by.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time.